Okay, so reaching the end of something really huge, something that's been bouncing around your head for ages, it's always a moment, right?
Definitely.
And in video games, especially those massive kind of philosophical JRPGs, that feeling just gets bigger. So today, that's exactly what we're diving into. The conclusion of the Xenosaga series on the PS2, Episode 3, also Sprach Zarathustra. And this deep dive, like always, is thanks to the sources you, our listener, shared with us.
Yeah, and what's really interesting about Episode 3 is just how much pressure was on it.
Right.
This wasn't just, another game in the series. It had to tie up this incredibly complicated story in this really unique world. Delivering a satisfying ending, that was a huge ask.
Absolutely. And consider this, it's a super text-heavy game, right?
Yeah.
Japanese release, July 2006, North America, just a month later in August.
Wow, that fast.
Yeah, that quick localization, it really feels like a deliberate move. Like, okay, let's get this finale out to Western fans now.
A strategic push to the finish line.
Exactly. So our mission today, let's really unpack this final chapter. We'll dig into the development, what made it tick, how people reacted, and, what kind of legacy it left behind. Okay, let's get into it.
Well, the journey to Episode 3 is a big part of the story itself.
Okay.
The original plan for Xenosaga, it was massive. 6 parts.
To 6, wow.
Yeah, but that got significantly rejigged. Episode 3 was actually designed from the get-go to be the end. The conclusion.
So they knew going in, this is it. That must have changed things.
It definitely did. You can imagine the pivot required. It wasn't just continuing, it was actively steering towards a final destination.
And it wasn't exactly smooth sailing to get there, was it?
Yeah.
I remember hearing about some challenges during development.
Oh, for sure. The reaction to Episode 2, both critical reviews and probably more importantly, the sales figures dropping.
Oh, okay.
Those were definitely factors. Plus, there were some key personnel changes at Monolith Soft. Ko-Are came in as director.
A new director for the finale.
Yeah, and he brought this sort of new all sensibility, as it was described. He really intended to make some substantial changes for Episode 3.
Interesting. A new all sensibility. What did that actually look like in the game compared to the first two? Sounds like they were trying to listen to the fans, maybe.
Exactly. That was a big part of it. Development specifically tried to address fan feedback, streamline the story, make it a cohesive ending.
Makes sense.
But there's always that tension between the creative dream and, well, the money. Commercial realities.
Always. Especially for a big JRPG like this.
Right. And you really see the complexity when you look at the credits, the sheer number of specialized jobs.
Oh, yeah, I saw that. Like programming director, battle programming specialist, control programming director, even menu programming.
And robot battle programming.
It just shows how much intricate work goes into these things. So, okay, how did all that complexity show up on screen, like the visuals?
Right. The visuals were definitely a standout feature of Episode 3. The lead artist and character illustrator was Kuchi Mujitani, or Chiho. He stepped in for this last one.
Okay, but wasn't Kunihiko Tanaka the original character designer?
He was. Tanaka set the original look. Mujitani taking the lead for Episode 3 meant a bit of a shift, visually.
A shift how? What was the new direction?
They were aiming for something more refined, maybe more realistic. That was the term used.
More realistic.
Yeah.
Interesting. Compared to Episode I's style.
Yeah, it was a conscious move away from the more stylized look of the first game. That became a big part of Mujitani's approach for the final game's identity.
And it wasn't just the people, right? The mechs, the ES units, they got some new designs too.
Oh, yeah. Junya Ishigaki did some great work on the new mecha, including KOS-MOS's new form, the ES Asher.
Right, the ES Asher. That looked pretty cool.
Definitely. And reviewers noticed that detail. The character models, the rendered landscapes, people generally praised the visual.
Generally. Was there something they didn't like?
Well, one thing that came up was the blood. Or lack thereof, maybe.
Oh.
Some felt that toning down the blood in cutscenes kind of lessened the impact of some of the more dramatic moments.
Huh. It's funny how a small detail like that can change the feel.
It really can. It affects how you read the intensity of a scene. But, okay, moving from what we see to what we hear, the sound was just as crucial.
And for Episode 3, that means Yuki Kagiura, right? She was the sole composer.
She was, and her contribution was absolutely massive. People loved the score, critics, fans, pretty much everyone.
What was it about her music that worked so well?
It just had this incredible emotional depth that could perfectly ramp up the tension in the big scenes, but also capture the quieter moments. It just made the whole world feel more immersive. Her style, that mix of orchestral, electronic, choral stuff, it just fit Xenosaga perfectly.
Yeah, her music becomes part of the story almost. So memorable. Was it just the big themes or did the other sound stuff work too?
No, the sound effects and overall audio design got praise as well. It all just fit together really nicely, created this whole soundscape.
Nice.
And if you wanted to listen outside the game, they released an official soundtrack album back in July 2006. Had tracks like Hepatica, KOS-MOS, and that big ending medley, Maybe Tomorrow.
Oh, cool. It really makes you think, doesn't it? How much does great audio really add to a game's impact, its legacy?
I'd say it's huge, essential even. And speaking of voices adding impact, let's talk about the actors who brought the characters to life, especially for the English version.
Right, the voice acting. Who handled that?
It was Cup of Tea Productions and NSI Sound and Video Inc., with Wendy Lee directing the voiceover. They put together a solid cast.
And importantly, didn't a lot of the actors come back from the first two games?
They did, and that was a big plus for fans. That continuity really helps.
Definitely keeps you grounded in the characters. So who are some of the main voices we heard?
Well, you had Leah Sargent as the main character, Shion Uzuki. Bridget Ellen Hoffman did double duty as KOS-MOS and T. Ellis.
Oh, wow, both of them.
Yep. Joshua Seth voiced Chaos. Christina Pacelli was MOMO. Richard Epcar played Ziggy. And Crispin Freeman voiced both Albedo Piazzolla and Gegnon Kukai.
That's a seriously talented lineup, and familiar names too. Having that consistency must have been great.
For sure. It helps maintain those characters people already knew.
Okay, so we've got these great visuals, compelling voices, amazing music. How did the game actually play? What was the gameplay like in Episode 3?
They definitely refined things, especially the combat system. Most people felt it was a big improvement over the earlier games. More strategic, flowed better.
An improvement how? What did they change specifically?
A big thing was the boost system. They put more focus on it. It wasn't just about getting extra turns. It was about manipulating the turn order, setting up character combos, chaining attacks. That became really key for tougher fights.
Okay, strategic boosting. What else?
There's also the break system that let you interrupt enemies, stop their attacks, so you had to pay attention to what the enemy was doing, not just wail on them.
Adds another layer of tactics.
Exactly. And you still had the ES combat, piloting the big mechs, which had its own strategic feel.
And could you customize your characters much? Like skills and stuff?
Yeah, there was a skill point system for customizing characters, tweaking their abilities to fit how you wanted to play, and big welcome return. The database.
Ah, the in-game encyclopedia, yes.
Super helpful for keeping track of all the terminology, the lore, character backstories, enemy info. Essential for a series this complex.
Totally. So, sounds like they made the gameplay more engaging. Was it, like, super hard, though?
You know, generally, people didn't find Episode 3 exceptionally difficult, especially compared to some other JRPGs.
Okay.
Strategy helped with the boost and break stuff, but maybe the overall challenge was a bit more forgiving. Let players focus more on the story wrapping up.
Right, the story. The main event for Xenosaga. So, where did Episode 3 pick things up narrative-wise?
It starts about a year after Episode 2's big finale, and the focus is really strongly on Shion Uzuki. She's dealing with all the ongoing mysteries around KOS, MOS, and then the appearance of Telos, her sort of dark twin.
Right, Telos.
And like you'd expect from Xenosaga, it tackles some heavy themes. Sacrifice, betrayal, what honor really means. It's all in there.
Classic Xenosaga. So the goal was to tie up all those threads from the first two games.
That was the aim, definitely. Weave everything together. But remember that whole 6 episodes becoming 3 thing?
Yeah, the compression. How did that affect the story?
Well, it inevitably impacted the pacing. Some plot points, some character arcs, they maybe didn't get quite as much breathing room as they might have in the original plan.
Must have been tough for the writers.
Mm-hmm.
So how did people feel about the ending overall? Did it work?
It was a bit mixed, I'd say. People were glad it did end,
Yeah.
It provided closure. But some definitely felt it was rushed in places.
Compressed.
Yeah. Trying to resolve that much complex story in one game, it was a huge task. But hey, if you needed help navigating it all, there was the official guide.
Ah, yes. The strategy guide. Always a lifesaver for these epics. Tell us about the one for Episode 3.
Right, so Brady Games put out one of their signature series guides for it in 2006, right when the game launched. Written by Michael Lummis and Edwin Kern.
Brady Games signature series. So those were usually pretty good, weren't they? What kind of stuff was in it?
Oh, it was loaded. Full walkthrough, naturally. All the enemy data you could want, lists of items, equipment, side quest guides.
Nice.
Plus specific tactics for bosses and tricky parts, and even a cool fold-out Xenosaga timeline. Super useful for keeping the whole saga straight.
A timeline. Yeah, you'd need that. Sounds pretty comprehensive. Big book.
Huge. Over 300 pages. Really shows how much was packed into that game.
Wow.
And funny enough, the guide itself is now a collector's item. Goes for pretty high prices sometimes.
No way.
Yeah, speaks to how passionate the fans still are, wanting that complete Xenosaga set. And speaking of fans and lasting interest, these characters didn't just stay in their own games, did they?
That's right. They popped up in crossovers.
Yeah.
Which is always cool to see. Shows the characters really stuck with people.
Totally. It keeps the series visible. So where have we seen the Xenosaga crew show up?
Well, KOS-MOS is the big one, right? She's been in a bunch of stuff.
Definitely the main ambassador. She was in Namco X Capcom on PS2, Super Robot Taisen OG Saga, Endless Frontier on DS, both Project X Zone games on 3DS.
Wow, quite the resume.
And even a little nod in Xenoblade Chronicles 2 on the Switch, which is neat since Monolith Soft made that too.
Nice connection.
Yeah.
Any other characters make the jump?
Yeah. Shion and MOMO were also in Namco X Capcom, and Tielos showed up in the Endless Frontier games and Project X Zone as well.
So KOS-MOS, Shion, MOMO, Tielos. Quite a few of them got out there.
It definitely helped keep the series' spirit alive even after the main trilogy ended. Contributes to that legacy we were talking about.
For sure. It introduces them to new players potentially, too. Okay, so let's circle back to Episode 3 itself. How did it actually do when it came out? Sales? Critical reception?
Well, in North America, sales were around 122,000 units, based on the old NPD data we have.
Okay, 122K. How does that compare to the first two?
Interestingly, it was lower than both Episode I and Episode 2.
Huh. Lower sales for the finale. Any idea why?
Hard to say for sure. Maybe some fans dropped off after Episode 2. Maybe the market was changing. But that relative scarcity, combined with it being the finale and having that dedicated fan base.
These has become rare and expensive for collectors now.
Exactly. Fewer copies out there, high demand from fans who want the complete story. But critically, it did pretty well.
Yeah. What did the reviews say?
Got an 81 on Metacritic, based on 34 reviews.
Yeah.
So generally favorable.
Solid score. What do critics like most?
The improved battle system was a big one. Faster, more engaging, more strategic. Lots of praise there.
Okay.
The visuals and art design got high marks too, those detailed characters and environments. And of course, Yuki Kajiura's soundtrack was almost universally praised.
Can't argue with that. Anything else?
The story, despite the compression, was still seen as engaging and thought-provoking, and the voice acting was considered strong too.
So, mostly positive. But were there any common complaints, things people didn't like as much?
Yeah, a few things came up. We mentioned the toned-down blood earlier. Some felt that hurt the impact.
Right.
Others found the battle system, while improved, maybe got a little too easy later on once you figured it out.
The difficulty curve.
And some felt it was maybe a bit oversimplified compared to mechanics in the earlier games. And, you know, we have to mention the canceled HD remaster.
Oh, man, yeah. That was a huge disappointment for fans.
Huge. And it definitely hasn't helped the price of the original PS2 games. If anything, it makes them even more sought after.
Such a shame that remaster never happened. It would be great to have the whole trilogy easily accessible. So, wrapping things up, what's the final word on Xenosaga Episode 3, its place in JRPG history?
Well, it's definitely significant. Maybe a little bittersweet because of the shortened plan, but significant. It managed to bring this incredibly ambitious, complex story to a close.
Yeah, it's no small feat.
It gave us memorable characters, much better gameplay than Episode 2, and that absolutely stellar music. Even though it wasn't the 6-part epic originally planned, Episode 3 and the whole series still mean a lot to the fans who connected with it.
It really holds a special place.
It really does. It stands as this unique, intellectually stimulating JRPG, a real testament to ambitious storytelling in games, even with compromises.
Absolutely. It really leaves you thinking about that balancing act, doesn't it? Between the huge creative vision and the messy realities of actually making and selling a game. What really makes an ending satisfying, especially for something so complex, when you know things had to change along the way? It's definitely something interesting to chew on. Anyway, thanks for joining us for this deep dive.